Welcome to Install from Heap, Episode 11, a Netrunner podcast from Rattlebox Games about jank, deck building, and cyberpunk nonsense. I'm Brendan Riley. Today on Install from Heap, where I've been and what I've been doing, deck building, bye-bye noise, brain rewiring, targeted marketing, flavor of the week, God of War. I thought about calling this, instead of Episode 11, calling it Season 2, Episode 1, but I don't like the idea of doing seasons. For one thing, it means I have to organize some sort of stop again, and that's not really fitting. Hello, loyal listener. It's been a very long time since you last heard from me here on Install from Heap. Since last we talked, I moved, which was quite a disruption to my family life. I took a trip to Origins Game Fair. I took a trip to Alaska and drove around in a mobile home. And I've played a little bit of Netrunner. So I'm really glad to be back. It seems like this is an auspicious time given the recent announcements from FFG, which I'm sure I'll refer to as we go along. But for those of you who left me in your podcast feed, I appreciate it. For those of you who are new, go back and listen to the other episodes. They're relatively timeless. And let me know what you think. So let's get started. Segment 0, Gameplay Update. So I thought I'd take a minute here to give you an idea of what I've been doing playing Netrunner. This is Brendan Riley again, for those of you who had forgotten my name. So I've done a little bit of online play. Actually, most of my play has been online webcam play. I've done a bit of terminal directive with my daughter, but I'm afraid our game has stalled because she doesn't have as much time to play Netrunner as I do, and our skill level has divided enough that it's not really fun. And she's not the sort of player who would appreciate me pulling my punches, and she would know if I did. She kicks my butt regularly in other games, but the Netrunner thing has stalled out a little bit. So lately we've been playing Jinteki online against other people, and we just sit next to each other and play online. And that's actually worked pretty well. I may try to bring her with me to one of the Netrunner meetups that I've been attending lately, but her other activities get in the way of that. Speaking of which, I've begun, again, 2 different ways of playing Netrunner using cards with other people, rather than using my computer against strangers. One of these is the Webcam League has started up again. If you're interested in that, search for Netrunner Webcam League, and you'll find it. It's a Facebook group, ostensibly organized by a league, but really there aren't enough of us to make that happen, I don't think. Although Doug, the organizer, has been working hard to do that. Mostly it's a chance to play Netrunner against people, even if you don't have a local meta or don't have an easy way to get out. And I think the experience is better than Jinteki, although it takes a little more arranging, obviously, because you have to find someone who's online and set up a webcam and all of that. But it works pretty well. I've also started going to, there's a game store near my new home called Fair Game. It's in Downers Grove, Illinois. And they have a Tuesday night Netrunner meetup. I say I've started going to. I went one time, but I plan to go a couple times a month to play Netrunner with people there, and that's really fun. One of the guys there, actually the one who sort of invited me first, is a guy named Graham Carlson. You can listen to his excellent and much more regular podcast, Shipment from Chilo. You can find that a link to that in the show notes. So that's my gameplay update. Segment 1, Deck Building. So what have I been doing with deck building? I've been keeping a lot of the same things that I used to do. I've been playing around with an HB Brain Damage deck. I've been playing around with a really good Builder of Nations deck. You all know how much I like that ID, and some of the recent cards have made that really strong. But I wanted to talk today about a deck that I won't be able to play very much longer because of the changing rules regarding legality. For those of you who haven't been following Netrunner rules, Fantasy Flight recently announced that with the upcoming rotation that will start in October, not only are the Spin and Genesis cycles going out of rotation, meaning it'll be no longer able to use those cards, they've also refreshed the core set. So the core set will have a new set of cards, which includes some of the favorites from those original 2 cycles, but it also removes a bunch of cards from the original core set. And frankly, it looks like a much more balanced experience. I think if you're thinking about getting into the game, the new core set will be an excellent time to do so because I think it'll be a lot of fun. That said, we're losing a couple of mainstays, and you can pursue other more competitive and exhaustive podcasts about that. But I wanted to talk today about the Anarch ID that we're losing from the core set, Noise. He's a hacker extraordinaire. He's some sort of DJ. It says he's a Gmod. Whenever you install a virus program, the corp trashes the top card of R&D. And his quote is, "Watch this, it'll be funny." He is some sort of musician, seems a little spaced out, a little crazy. And he always reminded me of the character Tires. There's a BBC TV show called Spaced, and there was this biker who always sees the world as an electronic rave space. His name is Tires. I'm going to play a little audio clip here, but it doesn't do it justice because it's a visual gag. So I'll also put a link to a clip on the notes page for the segment.
So can I bring the bike in? It's just seeing your landlady's curtains twitching. She's got the look of a bike thief about her.
What, aging female divorcee? What's she going to do, sell it to buy Jacob's Creek?
Look, it's sarky with me, mate. That bike's my living, not like you pretend to be some struggling cartoonist pouncing off a stable like decent taxpayers like me fund your drink problem. I wouldn't mind so much if you seen me having such a shit time. But anyway, I was just coming back from a club, right? Passing by your gaff and I remembered. You owe me 20 quid.
Did you want a cup of tea, Taz?
I couldn't eat a thing. My stomach's like a walnut.
Don't you even have tea?
No solid.
Something orange?
Water?
Water, okay.
Now, the thing about noise that works really well is that it allows you to make weird decks that don't interact, right? So you can build a noise deck that's entirely about burning out the corp by doing other things other than running. You install viruses and then you reinstall them and so on. And a lot of the big viruses that made noise strong are being removed from the core set as well. Parasite and Medium, to be specific, as well as the card Deja Vu, which let you get your viruses back from the heap so you could reinstall them. And without those, noise loses a lot of the tools that makes him an interesting runner. I'm kind of sad to see him go. I think it's an interesting difference, but it can also be very disheartening as a player to not have anything you can do about the fact that the noise player is just dumping cards into your archives and you can't do anything about it. That said, in a recent cache refresh game, I had a noise deck that I built that was built around using these viruses to mill out the corp. The goal was not to win by running, even though toward the end you could probably win by running archives. Usually once you start dumping a lot of stuff into archives, they ice up archives pretty well, so it's hard to get in there. My goal with noise was really to win using the old noise tradition of installing viruses, trashing them with Aesop's pawn shop to get money, and then installing more viruses, and winning just by doing that. And I had a really great game that I ended up winning mostly because of a lucky combination of cards, but I wanted to share it because it was funny. I had the Sentry Breaker Persephone installed, and Persephone is a very expensive Sentry Breaker. It's not ideal, but it says whenever you pass a sentry, you may trash the top card of the stack to trash one card from the top of R&D for each subroutine on that sentry that resolve. So with Persephone, let's say that you're running and you encounter an Errand Boy, which is not a very common card. It's a strength 1 sentry that lets the corp take money or cards. So if you don't break it, it doesn't hurt you, but it helps the corp. If you have Persephone, you could let all 3 of those subroutines fire, then you trash 1 card off your stack, and the corp has to trash 3 cards off of R&D, which is a pretty good payoff, or a good side effect for the Persephone. So what happened is I was playing against a Jinteki deck, and they rezzed Komainu. Komainu is one of the worst ones to encounter just faceplant because it says, when the runner encounters Komainu, it gains do 1 net damage for each card in the runner's grip for the remainder of this run. In other words, if I have 5 cards in my grip, it has 5 subroutines that say do 1 net damage. In other words, if you hit it and you don't have a Sentry Breaker, then you lose your whole hand. And with Jinteki, there's a good chance you're going to get hit with another net damage somewhere and die. But I was playing noise and trying to get my opponent to mill. So I hit that and I let it trash my whole hand. Then I discarded a card off the top of my stack, and now the corp had to trash 5 cards. Well, this suddenly then became a strategy for me as the runner. I had a turn where I started with 5 cards. I drew up to 7, then I ran, let Komainu trash my whole hand, and then I drew 1 more card to protect against a Neural EMP. And of course, then the corp had to trash 7 more cards off their stack. Probably the counterplay there is to overinstall the Komainu. Don't let me keep hitting that. But it was pretty fun while it was working, and it did end up winning me the game. So I'll put the link to that noise cache refresh deck. It's not really anything special. It's a kind of standard noise deck, but you won't get to play them very much longer. So here's your chance. Breaking news. We here at Rattlebox Games are regular attendees at something called Toggle Gaming in Palatine, Illinois, where we have lots of colleagues and friends who play games and develop games. Some of our friends there have a Kickstarter going on right now, and I wanted to mention it. I can affirm that this game is really fun and have myself backed a copy. You guys should definitely check out this new drinking game called Bow Ties. It's on Kickstarter now. In the game, players clip bow tie-shaped cards to their shirt collars. The collars have drinking rules on them like, tell me to drink when I smile, or tell me to drink when I touch my hair. But the catch is that no one knows their own rule. So when friends tell you to drink, you have to figure out why. The best part about bow ties is that it can be played at parties, bars, or really any social event because no matter what you're doing, the rules are always in effect. You can also take it to the next level by playing another drinking game and bow ties at the same time. As somebody who doesn't drink alcohol, I can attest that it's fun even if you're not getting extra lubricated. It can be a fun game that you play for points over the course of the night. When you figure yours out, you take the card and put it in your pocket and draw another card. Bow Ties is out now on Kickstarter, so check it out. And now back to the show. Segment 2, Brain Rewiring. I've traditionally had segment 2 of this podcast be something called Executive Boot Camp, which was an introduction for newer players or the perspective of a new player about different things. I've decided to alternate that with other segments, to have this middle segment of the podcast be something else and change it up. It won't always be Brain Rewiring. It won't always be Executive Boot Camp. It may sometimes be other things. But I've decided to change it up a little bit just to keep the variety there and allow me to explore topics as I think of them. I was also reflecting on the introduction that I give. I say that this is a podcast about cyberpunk nonsense, and I haven't really talked about that much. So what I thought I would do with the Brain Rewiring section is look at a card or an idea in Netrunner and ask about how close that is to really happening. So thinking a little bit about what we're experiencing in the world around us and how Netrunner is tapping into that. So I thought I'd start today with a card called Targeted Marketing. Targeted Marketing is an NBN operation. It's one influence, so you can splash it pretty easily. And it's a current, so you play it and it stays in play. It says, this card is not trashed until another current is played or an agenda is stolen. Name a card. Gain 10 credits whenever the runner plays or installs a copy of that card. All right, so the idea is if you think you know what the runner's going to play, you can play Targeted Marketing and get a whole bunch of money when they do. That's a fun card. It's a fun idea. But it also rings really true to our current day. Now, obviously, targeted marketing is something we've seen in science fiction for a long time. My favorite example of it is from the movie Minority Report, where Tom Cruise's character gets some secondhand eyes. I'm not going to go into it. But then when he goes into a store, the store scans his retinas and then gives him a personalized ad about jeans.
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap. How those assorted tank tops work out for you?
Mr. Yakamoto.
And I think the best example of that is the growing idea that Facebook listens to your conversations and targets ads based on them. Every now and again, you'll hear from someone or see a rumor that this is happening. People will report talking about something and then getting Facebook ads about it. So I did a little research and I found that there are a bunch of articles saying, we've found people reporting this, but we think it's anecdotal. In other words, yeah, maybe you were talking about getting a new car and suddenly saw new car ads on Facebook, but maybe you also searched for a new car, so who knows? Forbes even said, we don't know. However, I found this article on The Verge from last June, so over a year ago now, where Facebook says we're not eavesdropping on you and blah, blah, blah. But then they qualify what they say. They say, we only access your microphone if you have given our app permission and if you are actively using a specific feature that requires audio. The recent statement reads, this might include recording a video or using an optional feature we introduced 2 years ago to include music or other audio in your status updates. That last phrase, or using an optional feature we introduced 2 years ago to include music or other audio in your status updates. The article says that that's referring to the fact that Facebook can sometimes tag your post with the music you're listening to. The way I read that, though, is that it is a significant CYA statement. It's an optional feature, and we all know in Facebook when they introduce an optional feature, it comes in turned on, that allows it to actively listen when you've got Facebook open, because it's going to tag with music, so it needs to identify the music. But that means you've given them access to your microphone when you have Facebook open and you're actively using it. I would suggest that they probably define actively using it as the app is running, so probably not even on the main screen. So Facebook can gain its 10 credits by knowing that you're going to buy a brand new car soon, just like targeted marketing can. Segment 3, Flavor of the Week. The Flavor of the Week segment is inspired by an old StimHack column called Running on Italics, in which a couple of writers from StimHack would look at a new data pack and they would examine each card from the context of flavor and mechanics to see how well does this card fit what we're doing. So in memory of that, I like to do a flavor of the week segment in each episode. This week, we're going to be looking at God of War. I was going to use a clip from a recent movie for God of War, but I realized that it would be kind of a spoiler if you hadn't seen this. So I'm going to assume that you know who Mars is, and we'll have no clip this week. God of War is an Anarch icebreaker. It's a virus, which I had it in my noise deck. It says, when your turn begins, you may take 1 tag to place 2 virus counters on God of War. Hosted virus counter, break ice subroutine. 2 credits, plus 1 strength. Alice Merchant says, subtle? You don't really understand the point of all this, do you? And the image is a kind of Roman centurion god figure being attacked or breaking apart things. It's got a spear. Definitely looks Greek or Roman. So obviously thematically, given that this is the red sand cycle, this is a Mars cycle, having an icebreaker called God of War, which is Mars, makes sense. The art is great. It looks dramatic and filled with violence the way that the God of War should be. And I like Alice Merchant's thing, this isn't subtle, and it shouldn't be. I really like the mechanics of this card, right? It's an icebreaker. You can spend to increase its strength, but the only way you get to break the subroutine is to be taking virus counters, and you have to take a lot of them if you're going to use it much. Let's say that you wanted to use your God of War to get through an archer. Now, admittedly, archer is one of the most expensive things to get through. To break through the archer and break all the subroutines, you're going to have to spend 12 credits and take 2 turns, giving you 4 tags in order to build up the tokens necessary. So God of War is not going to be a great choice. And I like the idea that you're going to have to do a lot to get something done with God of War. War is a dangerous thing. It should be brutal. But at the same time, if you're running a tag me deck where you are happy to take the tags and then you use the tags for other things, God of War is going to be an essential, valuable choice because it'll give you tags as you're playing, and it'll also then allow you to use those counters really productively. Although the 2 credits to bump its strength 1 is a really unpleasant thing, and I'm not going to see this card in play much. It's brutal and loud, and I do like that. So as a card, I'm going to rate it pretty low. I can't imagine using it because it's so expensive, but as a bit of theme, I really like it. And so I would give it a high B for theme. Conclusion. Well, that wraps up Install from Heap episode 11. If you have suggestions for future topics or comments on the show, I'd love to hear them. You can send email to brendan@rattleboxgames.com or tweet to rattleboxgames. You can also visit our website, rattleboxgames.com, to subscribe to our newsletter, or follow the link to our forums on BoardGameGeek.com, where my username is Wombat929. I'd always enjoy losing a game of Netrunner to you on Jinteki.net, where my username is also Wombat929. See you next time, but until then, remember, when all your best cards end up in the trash, you can always install from Heap. Today's media clips were from Spaced, Minority Report,
brought to you by Rattlebox Games.